Collective. Hello, hello, my loves. Welcome to Vivid Vibration. My name is Christina. I hope that y'all are doing well. Collective. Today we got abandon worry, which is fun because yesterday we were like, don't stress out, don't freak out. Abandon worry. When you worry about the things that you do not know, you steal the joy from your present being. Worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its storms. It robs today of its sunshine. This moment asks you to trust instead of worry. It's not as bad as you think. Your worry is attempting to shelter you from an oncoming storm, but it's working overtime to convince you of a darkness that may never come. Your concern and self-protection are healthy. You need them. Worry, however, is not your friend. It robs your peace of mind. It robs your peace of mind and can keep you from trying new things, things that could potentially be a wonderful fit for you. Abandon all things that do not fit you, genes, relationships, beliefs. Worry has always been too confining. Break through that dark ceiling and your possibilities will soar. Okay, so I guess we're still dealing with some anxieties. It's natural, it's normal, it's okay. We all have anxiety about something or another. I mean, perhaps not all, but truth be told, I don't know that I've ever encountered a human being that doesn't have it, even if it is hidden away in the crannies. Seven of Wands, Two of Cups, the Hermit, and Justice. Well, I mean, the Hermit is definitely an energy that has been present in the reads for a while, just that idea of pulling away. With Justice, I do kind of feel like there is that idea of, like, sometimes, and I know there are people out there who are like, I don't know. I mean, there are entire markets based off of retaliation, right? I mean, like the most basic way I think that you can witness it in are like those advertisements for, like, have you been in a car accident? Call us, um, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like negate if somebody has been in an accident, there's been a serious injury, and it's something that you need to do or feel like you can do. I don't know. I was talking to somebody the other day. For some reason we were talking about hospitals and doctors, and I don't I don't do it. But I guess this person had this procedure, and the surgeon who was doing it was very just irresponsible with what they were doing and created real damage. And then like it was like a whole thing, and the person didn't sue. And the reason they didn't sue, and this is very telling of a lot of things, but the reason they didn't sue is because they were worried that if in the future they needed medical attention, they would experience retaliation for seeking justice in that situation, right? So rather than fight, they let it go, because it was something that they carried sincere concern about, like their well-being in terms of retaliation. I think retaliation is something that a lot of people worry about. Um, yeah, I mean, it's real. It's real in all of the ways. I don't know. I mean, I think about dating. I don't know, you guys. I do have really great social skills. Actually, thank you very much. But when I like, I don't, I've always been like a monogamous person. I got married really young. I was in long-term relationships from the time I was 15 until I was 36, I want to say. And then I was just like, oh, I can't even bothered with it. And when I would go on dates, it was always, like it's a pleasantry, and if I'm connecting with another human being, while I'm fine with pleasantries while I'm in the world, that's not what I'm seeking in my personal relationships. It's just a pleasant byproduct of a sincere relationship. But I can people. um, but in that experience, okay, so we'll go back to that, right? Like, especially with, what's going on in the world and, like the war against brown, black people. Like I grew up in a weird dichotomy with it all. The man that raised me, I call him dad, it teaches ancient world civilization. His doctorate is in ancient Roman civilization, and his dig was in Abila, Jordan for like 30 years. Now he's in England for his dig, but he's a professor and an archaeologist and just like an all around amazing human being. Like growing up with him was such a beautiful experience because he cared about the well being of people, but he cared about the well being of people who nobody cared about. He would always find the misfit and take them under his wing and help them in any way he possibly could, and would never ask for anything in return, just a heart of gold in a lot of ways. I remember leaving a baseball game, and there was this man who was, clearly very drunk and houseless, and probably it had been houseless for most of his life. And when we passed him, my dad was like, come on, like, let's go. And we went into like the closest little pizza shop thing that was there, and he bought him some food. A good man. I learned a lot from him. I still learn a lot from him, whenever I have the opportunity to do so. He's my first go-to reference when I have a question about something. But, I also grew up with a mother who was, her degree, her master's degree is in composition and rhetoric. And so she taught, composition and rhetoric, and she taught women's literature and, all of that. And so very, like for women, but everything that she said was in complete contradiction with everything that she was. You know, I mean, how can you talk about people being abused and then turn around and mock that? Like she's just she's just not a good person. But so I grew up around culture, but I was never allowed to engage with anything that was similar from my culture. And I say allowed, I don't know that that was really like a deliberate statement that was presented, but she had my biological father's information. She would call him when she needed money before dad came around, and conveniently lost his information before I was allowed to see him. And I was never allowed to meet him because I was the bastard kid who would ruin his life if I was a part of it. And I was in white communities, so I was always, I don't know, when I was in elementary school, it's funny, Chinese gets attached to me a lot. Chink was the popular one. I it's always just been my experience. And then, like there were times when I would, date guys who were Mexican, and I wasn't Mexican enough. I'm not a real Mexican, I like, and that always pissed me off because I'm not a real Mexican, but I can take the, like I remember this one job that I worked at. Well, there's like a whole story behind it, but basically I was hired to write a grant. And so I'm working on this grant, but the company that I was working on this grant at, like was riddled with people who were active KKK members. And when I was done with the grant, they basically came up with a reason to fire me, but the real reason that they did was because I was receiving threats, and they weren't going to fire anybody else, because those were the people who were, you know, I don't know what, managers or maintenance people. I don't know. They're but my experience in that has is always very isolated to me, because I don't belong anywhere. I'm a mutt who has experienced a lot of, like, we don't want you here. You're too this, or you're not enough that, or you're, you know what I mean. And so I think that it was just a natural inclination for me to hermit, to isolate, because if I can't connect with people about who I am, and I'm not enough of this, and I'm too much of that, and I'm all here, and you know what I mean, like, you know, where do I fit in the world, and that's been a real adventure for me in life. Because I am a very friendly person, I think that I've found that I'm able to, at least temporarily find points of reprieve, until something presents itself as, like, not something that I want to be a part of, or, something that doesn't want me to be a part of it. It just kind of depends on the scenario and the situation, but it's just not an uncommon experience for me. And so I have found that, like, in moving through life, I'm timid to say much of anything to anybody about anything, because rejection. Because I'm just not quite enough, or little too much, But I think that, like, that's just something that I've accepted, right? And because I've accepted it, I'm comfortable with just, being alone, and never mind the fact that, like, I was alone, and both my parents were in academics, and my father still is, but they were teaching classes, and then night classes, and, I mean, so I just, like, and I was the only child in my entire family. Oh yeah, that's like, but I barely knew most of the people. I think I saw my aunt maybe a dozen times in my life. My uncle had run away at a very early age, so I didn't meet him until he found out that he was dying, because he had gotten AIDS, and at that point in time they didn't have medications that really dealt with it. He ended up dying of, like, the bird's flu, I think. But again, I saw him one time, once. So, like, I didn't, like, I was always just a part of other people's families. I mean, I share all of that because I think that, worry, what is worry? How does worry exhibit itself to you? We all experience worry in some form or fashion. Any of us who isolate with reason, you know? And, that is a big example. But that can exhibit itself in small ways. I think, no matter which version of culture you're looking at, there's always going to be, like the in crowd of something, and like, in the ones who are on the outskirts, and, like, there's just a, like, I just feel like that's a natural experience that people have, that we can relate to each other in a big way. Yeah, I mean, in academics, it's like, what school do you teach at? Like, what, like, are you at a big school, or are you at a little school? Like, it's it's everywhere. And I think I've witnessed it in so many different places on so many different levels that like it doesn't even bother me because I always just kind of feel like an outside observer because I don't try to connect myself to things um, that don't naturally connect to me. And a lot of that has to do with the life experience that I've had and the recognition that like if you're not legit in whatever it is that you are, even if your experiences with that are legitimate, it doesn't matter. They don't want you, like check the box, other, like Mexican, non-white, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and I don't know what other lineages are involved with that because the people who I have met in my family have very different opinions about affiliations and they like get in real life fights about it and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter to me because I'm not enough of any of it. You know what I mean? So I'll just appreciate it all for what it is and learn from everything that I can and never try and push my way through a door that I don't belong in because I don't want to push my way through rejection. If it doesn't want me, that's fine. That sounds really like emo, but I don't mean that in an emo way because what I've also discovered is that when I do attract, like people to me, I attract sincere people to me. I attract people who aren't looking for a reason to reject me. They're not looking for a reason to put me down. They're not looking for a reason to exclude me. And so through living life, for the 43 years that I've lived it so far, I've had to learn to abandon worry in a lot of ways. Like worry about acceptance, worry about, pleasing people, worry about, convincing people of anything. I think that something that people get really upset with me about a lot, especially the ones who like seek my rejection and seek my, like exclusion or whatever. Like they'll get mad when they realize later down the road that like, oh wow, like she actually does this, or oh wow, she actually knows this, or oh wow, she's actually had this experience. Because I don't billboard it, because I would rather see how you would treat me before you know who I am, so I know whether or not I want to engage with you as a human being because it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Like, you know. But I think like developing that process through my life, I have created justice for myself, because I recognize, like the significance, I think, of belonging, the significance of connecting sincerely. Um, so, what does that mean to you? What does that struggle look like for you? What is it that you're worried about? Um, I do. I feel like there is a sense of worry about acceptance. Will I be accepted? And that's a natural thing to worry about, especially if you're entering into something new, like everything is a trigger topic of conversation. But like especially the topics that I like, I'm like, I don't know, I won't talk about it because I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to piss anybody off. And if I have to be in this environment, that I don't want to create enemies in my like immediate environments, you know what I mean? But even when I do that, I find that I'm the one that ends up rejecting whatever it is that I'm trying to not upset, because the fact that I have to try and not upset you is upsetting to me. You know what I mean? Like, just go ahead and remove myself from that situation. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know, like whatever it is that you're concerned with, I feel like the energy is still in play in terms of just not worrying about it and trusting that you don't have to sell yourself. I know, I know, I know. I don't know. I mean, like, okay, so I worked in marketing and advertising for years. I worked with major corporate companies. We had to go through 160 hours of training. We had to get all of our certifications. I've got every imaginable certification you can have for digital marketing, Google Analytics, Google AdWords, content creation, like all of it. I don't do it, as you can see, but I think it's because I've never, I think my idea of a big break is aligning with people who move with intention, speak with purpose, and have an awareness of the world outside of themselves. Because I feel like a lot of these practices are very ego driven, just super ego driven. And then the people who are, like have gone through it are, very just people are beneath me, like this is, oh, it's gross. And no one is beneath anyone. Um, we all have different experiences. We all have different gifts. We all have different talents. But social status, economic status, certifications, educations, that has absolutely nothing to do with your character. Nothing. You know what I mean? So if your character is shit, I don't give a fuck about what certifications you have or what knowledge you hold or what, like any of it. Um, and that's how I make my decisions on who I align with. um, I'm not alone in that. I know I'm not alone in that. I really and truly know, like anybody who comes from, mixed race families or, different socioeconomic backgrounds, like the divide is everywhere. So there are a lot of people who have experienced rejection for the color of their skin, rejection for their social status, rejection for, like, well, you're not from here, so you're not one of us. And it's like, well, okay, like I wasn't trying to be one of you. I was just trying to like find people who get it, but cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine too, like not gonna try and force my way through rejection. But if you've existed in that, you experience worry when going into the world because you never know where the rejection is going to come from. Until you reach a state where you are comfortable enough with yourself, where you are comfortable enough with your relationship with spirit that you can say, okay, I know that whatever experience I'm walking into, it is with reason. I know that with whatever, like rejection I experience, I learned something from that. Sometimes we just learn more reasons that the world is full of shitty people. That's an experience too. That's not the sum total of all experiences, right? We we can, for the handful of people that we experience who are shitty, if you find one good person out of that group, you're good. You know what I mean? Um, well, yeah. I mean, so I studied with these master energy healers, and it's basically based on Taoism. But brain and body education, working with the body, working with your energy, moving your energy, high elevated states of meditation, vision inducing, I mean, it's a very real practice. It's a very legitimate practice, and it works. It's cultural. It's very cultural in that it comes from Korea, or South Korea, and so. But I mean, but it's international at this point. But it's a very militant mentality that they operate from, and I don't. I've never been like the militant person. I mean, yes, I do embody a great deal of warrior energy, and I will when I need to, but I don't operate that like that, just like on my in the day to day, if you will. I don't know. I feel like this is a lot about me. I feel like, some of the people who are here with me are just here to like get to know me, and I'm like, thank you. It's very sweet. Thank you for listening to me share my story, and I hope that, as I share my story, you guys are able to relate to it. You are able to feel encouraged by it. Like, I think the point is to know that like you're not alone in the world. That's why we seek connection, right? That's why we seek an understanding of who we are. We seek an understanding of where we come from. We seek an understanding of our gifts. We seek, and for the ones who seek, it can be a rocky road, tumultuous terrain. And yet, when there is a need for rest, there is rest. When there's a need for recuperation, there is recuperation. Like, as long as we walk with spirit, there are valleys and there are peaks, and that's beautiful and that's okay. But it can also be very anxiety inducing. It can be anxiety inducing if you don't know where you're going to live. It can be anxiety inducing if you don't know, how am I gonna feed myself? How am I going to, basic fundamental things, or, like, you can take that up a notch, and it's like, well, how am I going to gain, like, more traction? How am I going to, fatten my resume? How am I going to, like, there's always this sense in our world of like, how do I, yeah, I mean, and especially when you're dealing in advertising and marketing, that is how do I, like, how do I get people to click on my stuff? How do I get people to listen? How do I engage in a way that's going to, but again, due to my own personal life and my own personal experience, I have no desire to just streamline myself to people who won't be able to comprehend what I'm saying. So I don't. I think for me, it's because, like, my goal is to find the people that I'm supposed to connect with. And Spirit says, do your reads. And so I say, okay. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, it's because you're lazy, or oh, it's because you're this, or oh, it's because of that. And it's just kind of like, again, projection, again, like, dealing with expectations, like, whatever expectations there are, like, they can cause a lot of worry. Um, yeah, I mean, with kids, I remember when the boys were kids, they were in karate, but all of the, like, the parents and the other kids, they were like soccer, baseball, football, karate, wrestling, da 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 da. And they ended up doing wrestling and football when they were in high school, but and basketball. But there's that, like, am I having my kids do enough? But I didn't personally feel that way, because I was like, these people run their kids ragged, like, these kids are going to grow up to be the kinds of adults who have no concept of slowing down and breathing. It's too much for me. I didn't want to do that to them. I mean, it's definitely a way of life. Seven of Wands. This is another card of conflict, because in the Wands we experience the impetuous energy of fire that ignites and sometimes challenges us. Yet this is also a card of pride and strength, for it is the card that pertains to your core values. Here you encounter what you believe in and what moves you. You can see it shining brightly in your heart. Sometimes you need to take a radical stand to take charge and defend your position. This is the card of activism, representing those who are not afraid to speak their mind, or those who find at last the courage and the opportunity to stand up for what they believe in. It gives space and a voice to those with less privilege, and invites you to dismantle the privileges you possess by standing alongside those with less agency, becoming their voice. Support those you can through small or large actions. Let your light shine as a guide for everything you believe in. Yeah. Move with purpose, and don't let that purpose be because you want the acceptance of other people. It's the worst motivation you could ever have because it will guarantee that you will hand over your autonomy, your person, your purpose, your drive. And sometimes it might feel like it takes us a long time to connect. And sometimes we don't just connect with something. We connect here, we connect here, we connect here, we connect here, and then somehow it all comes together and it feels like a whole connection. But that takes time. It takes time because when you're not selling yourself, when you're not trying to just be accepted by a world that doesn't want to accept you, no matter what world you're approaching, And again, even the ones who will accept you oftentimes will accept you, but only if you bow down to them, only if you adhere to them, only if you say to them, I'm not you, and so therefore I'm less. Fuck all those people, Hit him with the big fat fuck you. And keep it moving. And don't worry about it, because what you need will present itself to you. What aligns with you will find you, because if you are moving with spirit, spirit is present in all things. And spirit will move walls and shift paths and send us in whatever direction we need to go to figure out whatever it is that we need to figure out to prepare us for whatever it is that we're here for. And you can't concern yourself with trying to people please and trying to fit in and trying to be what other people want you to be, because if people want you to do that, then they're looking for reasons to reject you. They're looking for reasons to put you beneath them, and that's not a community that you want, It's not. An important encounter is taking place here, not just a chance meeting. This is the first meeting of two people who fall in love. Whether this is a new relationship, loving, friendly, or otherwise, the Two of Cups tells of that moment when you meet someone who completes you. I hate that. I'm sorry. I don't think that people complete us. I am complete on my own. Thank you. I think that people balance us. I think that you want to find people who balance you, right? If I have strengths, if I have gifts, if I have these things, that means that I'm not as gifted or strong or as whatever in other areas. And so I want to align myself with people who balance that out for me, right? I bring balance to their things, they bring balance to mine, right? But you want balance with people who are aligned, people who are in that frequency with you. That's not completion. That's all I'm saying. Someone you feel is important in your life. This is not an established love. The light, so whatever it is, it's new. It's definitely new. Whatever it is that we're coming into, new relationships, new friendships, new romantic relationships. I think things that feel a little bit like justice. Because justice is more than filing a lawsuit because you've been wronged. It's more than keeping quiet so that you don't get denied access to basic care. Um, it's connection. It's genuine, heartfelt connection. I love that. I'm here for it. Yeah, and I mean, and you're gonna experience that in different areas of your life with different people. Like, yeah, I mean, I've got friends who come from all different makes and matters and backgrounds and cultures and age groups and all of it, you know. But again, the Eight of Pentacles and the Lovers. Yeah, I mean, it's just these massive differences, right? Like the massive difference between people who want you to bow down, people who want you to be less than, people who are looking for a reason to reject you, people who are looking for a reason to fight with you, people who are looking for a reason to hate you. And you really don't have to give people much of a reason. You can pretty much make up anything about anybody if you're around a group of people who are just haters, who just look for reasons to hate people. You can very easily sway a group of people. I mean, let's take Donald Trump and MAGA, for instance. You know what I mean? Wow, what an easily persuaded group of people to hate mongering, you know? But that's everywhere. It's everywhere in different levels, at different levels, and it exhibits itself in different ways. And again, I can personally attest to that because I have experienced it in a number of ways. Whether it's race, background, family, money, like it's everywhere. So I'm not unaccustomed to it and I'm not afraid of it. And because I'm not afraid of it, I push through it. But sometimes it does feel like pushing through. And it does create anxiety because nobody wants to just always be going through the world thinking, is there anybody who doesn't want to hate me just because they can? Or love me because they think they can get something from me? Because that's the other side of that is just being tokened. Whether you're a trophy wife or a token piece of culture, like, no, no on all fronts. But again, I just feel like whatever that is, there's justice because when you practice discernment, when you refuse to accept things that ultimately are not really interested in accepting you, you will be led by spirit in the direction that you're meant to be once you've completed the lessons that you needed to complete. For whatever reason that you needed to complete them, because we all have different reasons, because we all have different experiences. Ten of Swords. Damn, we got this the other day. Yeah. Five of Swords, Ten of Swords, Hanged Man. Yeah, being attacked, having to cut ties, right? Rejection can feel aggressive. It feels aggressive if you're on the receiving end, and it feels aggressive if you're on the giving end, because for, all the times I've been rejected, I've probably rejected that many more people, Sometimes I've done it aggressively. Sometimes I've done it loudly. Sometimes I've done it poorly, but it can feel aggressive because, like, what do you, like, if somebody's trying to engage with you and you are looking at them like, okay. I think I heard my name. But again, you have to be comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable with rejection. You have to be comfortable with not belonging. You have to be comfortable with all of that. Because if you're not comfortable with it, you will slide into the imbalances of other people rather than being with people who balance you out. It's so fucking important. Another lesson that I learned from being in relationships for so long in my life, that I needed a time to just really not be in this scenario where like I was allowed to just be myself, where I wasn't bowing down to somebody who wanted me to be less than them, because that is what relationship has ended up being for me oftentimes in my life. It's been this trade of somehow being less, while serving. I don't know. That's just not, no. Like I'm not here to be the servant of a man who doesn't even know what it means to lead. Who doesn't know what it is to have compassion, who doesn't know what it is to care for those who are struggling, who has no sense of humanity. You know what I mean? Like, and considering that I have the abilities that I have, I can look into you immediately and know. Another reason that dating is uncomfortable for me. I don't know why I feel the need to defend that, but somebody has like given me some shit for it, and I just want to stand up for myself. But yeah, I mean, as a woman in a very patriarchal society that does not honor women, that does not honor what we bring, does not honor the healing that we offer, does not honor the insight that we offer, hates the love, doesn't really want to accept the love, because the love somehow translates to nagging. I mean, there are so many forms of in our lives where even when we're doing our best, it's not enough from all of these different cultural perspectives or all of these different expectations and societal expectations. It is woven into every experience that we have. Racism, sexism, classism, that it's people are blind to it. And when you spend your life not being blind to it, it can be really irritating. It can make you reach a point where you want to say, you know what? Fuck off. Nobody asked you. Yeah. Well, again, though, just this idea of feeling like the Eight of Swords is the idea of you're not really stuck. You're not really stuck in that. And if you want to go with the idea of the matrix, like the matrix of society, which is legitimate, definitely, I think that everything is a constructed story. And it's a constructed story politically, religiously, through, corporations. Also, just as a recognition of this, Nike is supplying ICE with masks, so let's go ahead and boycott Nike, yeah? But we're not as limited as we think we are. It just can feel really limiting when you feel like either it's me or them, but there's going to be a rejection. It's coming from somewhere. But I feel like that's ending because when you stop trying to fit in, when you stop trying to people please, when you stop being willing to bow down to others because they think that they're superior to you for whatever reason, like focus on what you're doing, focus on why you're doing it, focus on sacred self, focus on relationship with spirit, spend time in nature, come back to you. You will attract the right people at the right frequency. I don't know why I feel so irritated by that. I do. I feel sincerely irritated right now. I don't know, which is not anxiety. But I guess in a way it can be, because it's just like, how am I going to be irritated? Because if I'm so accustomed to living my life where I am somehow inconveniencing the people around me, race, sex, socioeconomics, however it is that we inconvenience the people who we encounter, then I'm gonna get irritated. Then I'm gonna want to be like, the fuck, you know what I mean? Then you're gonna see the other side of me come out. But I don't enjoy existing in that energy. Like that's not like my goal in life, isn't to just go around fighting everyone. But like also, if you come at me, I will come back. And I don't want to have to live like that. I don't want to have to be in environments where I am in the state of knowing that that is the only existence that I will have. And so I refuse, and I will refuse until I don't have to have that, like, I don't know. I'm a very patient person. I don't feel the need to rush into things because I don't know, just I think things have a way of playing themselves out. I think that people have an addiction to emotional roller coasters. Like you can become addicted to the fight. You can become addicted to the attitude. You can become addicted to, like it can callous you. It can callous you if you let it, for sure. And so again, it's that balance, whether you're balanced by another person or just balancing yourself, but it does, oftentimes it does, it requires that time of just pulling away and focusing on you, focusing on what you are doing, like pulling that as above, so below energy in, to you. Jack of Hearts, Four of Spades, Queen of Diamonds. The book presages the discovery of a mystery affecting the person for the better in a degree governed by the distance. The eye, when near, denotes great interest taken by friends. When distant, it signifies suspicion. Children signify friendly disposition and gentleness. Well, the suspicion, the anxiety, the rejection, the frustrations, the feeling exhausted, feeling stuck, feeling like, are there people who I don't have to fight? Hella ignorance everywhere. Hella sociopathic communities everywhere. Ego driven everywhere. I don't think that it's going to be that way. I don't think that it's going to stay that way. I do think that we're moving away from that energy. And I guess we just wanted to talk about it today. So we're talking about it. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. I had a really great day today. I started my new job and I'm learning like they sent me home with like 5 books. I'm like, fuck, I got a lot to learn. But it's stuff that I really do want to learn about because it embodies with it like a healing element. And so I'm always down to learn on the many variations that we can incorporate in our own practices. So I'm stoked, and the people that I'm working with are fantastic. Tend the roots of reciprocity. Yes, yes. Take care of the ones who take care of you. Listen to the people who listen to you. Work with the people who work with you. Align with the people who align with you. Don't try to force things. What is meant for you will naturally occur. And I think part of that sense of urgency that we push societally is very much that, like, because there's no real value there, I feel like I have to shove it down your throat. Otherwise, you won't really see any value. Why? Because there's no value there. Because if there was value there, you wouldn't have to shove it down my throat, right? What is it? The car, like the Maserati, not Maserati. I don't even, is a Maserati a fancy car? I feel like that's, anyways, I don't know, a fancy car. Like the cars that people drive who have could just throw down, you 500,000, no thoughts of it. Those cars, those companies don't advertise their products because why would they? Think of yourself as one of those cars, you know, who doesn't, you don't need to, like, well, yeah, I mean, and it's true. I mean, like a lot of these uber wealthy people, when they do get photographed when they're out, they are very casually dressed. They don't look like they spent millions of dollars on designer suits and clothes and everything else. They tend to be very, like non-flashy. But again, I feel like, okay, so that's like an advertisement type of example, but as a person, you have value, you know? So what's your value? Where does your value lie? Work on developing that. Align with the people who you are meant to align with. What is meant for you will find you, especially if you are walking with spirit, because spirit will not lead you astray. It might feel like it sometimes because you're like, the fuck is this for? What's going on now? You know what I mean? I don't want to, but here I am, like energy, you know. Um, it can feel that way. It can feel that way, but it's not without reason. It's not without purpose. You just have to sometimes stop and honor it for what it is, recognize it for what it is, honor the process for what it is. And as you do that, you will align with people who connect with that with you on your journey, on your purpose, right? Because we all have purpose, and none of us have a singular purpose. I do think that we are meant to. Give me one second, hold on one second. Hey, Mama. How are you? I missed you today. Yeah? You want to go outside? Okay. Okay. I love you. Sorry, she was not going to stop meowing until I did that. But yeah, I mean, just trust in the process, trust in your purpose. Yeah, well, no, because I don't know, like there is this whole thing that has literally followed me since I was a child. And personally, I don't know how I feel about it because anytime it presents itself to me, it presents itself to me in such a corrupt manner that I am so repulsed by it and want to fight anybody who wants to put it on me. And it's not because I'm like afraid of the idea of it so much as it is that I despise the corruption with which it is approached. Because to me, we are meant to connect. We are not meant to do anything alone. We are not meant to bear the burden of anything alone. And I don't think that spirit expects that of us. I think, the beautiful part of connecting with people who are connected to spirit is that spirit is able to communicate. You know what I mean? And if you're not communicating with me through spirit, if spirit isn't communicating to you, like if spirit has a purpose for me, which spirit does have a purpose for me, but Spirit's purpose for me is not corrupt. Spirit's purpose for me is a part of something that is bigger than me. But Spirit will connect me with whom I am meant to be connected with. And yes, we are dealing in the world of good and evil. There will be people who want to come and they want to take control. They want to push you in the direction that they're comfortable with. I think, for me, part of the reason that I don't super engage in the spiritual community is because I think that they're so disconnected from reality. Like, oh, I'm sorry, like for your first world problems of appropriated practices, but let's talk about how we're all in danger. So I don't fit. I can't with those people. I get angry. I do shit